From the murky waters of the sportsman's paradise, stories emerge. Stories of the generations of people who have shared in the bounties of the land. Stories of communities that have persevered through natural disasters. Stories of the abundance of fish, wildlife, and adventures that create an ecosystem rich in diversity. And from the silted banks of the mighty Mississippi to the soggy marsh bottoms, from the tops of towering pine forests to the depths of the salty Gulf, human and animal have shared this fortune for centuries. Enjoy these stories as told by outdoor journalists who travel across our state, documenting the adventure, sportsmanship, and heritage that make us Bayou Wild.
In the past decade, offshore recreational fishermen in the Gulf of Mexico have experienced much strife, shortened seasons, exempted fishing permit, stock assessments, catch shares, quotas, early closures. It's easy to get lost in the terminology.
We don't need a reduction of effort. We need a change in management and a change in the science and what we're allowed to catch.
No one will argue that the poster child for all of this conversation is the red snapper, and has become a catalyst for outcries of fishery management reform.
But as of right now, these fish are a problem.
But the controversy over red snapper is only the tip of the iceberg. On this week's show, we sit down with Congressman Garret Graves, author of the Modern Fish Act, and he explains the purpose for the law and what effect it may have on the future of recreational fishing.
The initial reaction I got from just about everyone is, oh, well, that can't be happening. It can't be as bad as you say. And I mean, almost every single person we talked to, that was the initial response.
Closed captioning made possible by Ceto.com. Become a member. I've been using Louisiana fish fry products so much, even the kids are getting into it.
Funny bag, pour and boil, with red crawfish every time.
And whether you're boiling crawfish, shrimp, or crabs, Louisiana fish fry products use the perfect blend of garlic, onion, spices, and salt for your seafood boils. So look for the bright yellow bag and pour and boil with Louisiana fish fry products. If you're lucky enough to bag a deer or a hog this season, bring it here to Double D. Double D processes hogs and exotic game and guarantees your product is always the meat you brought to Double D.
Double D Meats in Bogalusa, home of country smoked, spicy jalapeno cheddar, and other customized flavors.
Bring your deer or your hog here to Double D, where you always get your meat back in return. It's worth a drive to Bogalusa from anywhere. Double D.
I won this boat fishing the CCA Star Tournament. Felt surreal for about a week.
My name is Amelia, and I'm from Abbeville, and I won this boat.
There's 100 redfish waiting. It all starts Memorial Day weekend. Sign up today.
Offshore anglers across the nation are rejoicing after the Modernizing Recreational Fisheries Management Act was signed into law on December 31st, 2018. With bipartisan support, the Modern Fish Act is simply defined as a voice for recreational fishermen. Garret, before we get into the bill itself, give us a little bit of the background, the history on how long it has taken, how long did it go back before it was started, and where is it now?
Sure. The law that really governs all fisheries management, when I say fisheries, I'm talking primarily out in the oceans, in federal waters. It's called Magnuson-Stevens, and this legislation dates back to the 1970s. And that law was really put in place to manage commercial fisheries. It was written for the commercial fishers, and it was designed to manage our oceans for commercial fishers in the 1970s. And as commercial fishing has picked up and grown, and you have these huge industries tied to it, recreational fishing, you know, we've had more people out there recreational fishing. In the Gulf of Mexico, we have more recreational fishers than anywhere. But we've sort of been left to the scraps that the recreational fishers have. And this whole thing, Don, as you know, it started with red snapper. It started with this conflict between recreational and commercial fishers and the federal agencies on how red snapper was being managed, and how, once again, the scraps weren't enough for the recreational fishers.
All right, we're fishing on the first day of that long 3-day snapper season. Took us longer to get here than to catch our limit.
We realized very quickly as we were working on the red snapper solution, while this is snapper now, it's going to be amberjack, it's going to be grouper, it's going to be cobia, and recognize this is going to be a cascading effect. So rather than just fixing snapper, we need to fix it holistically. So in 2017, we worked closely with a number of conservation groups, with scientists and others, to introduce legislation in the House called the Modern Fish Act that it brings the recreational fishers to the table on the front end. So your entire management structure understands, comprehends, considers that you have a different sector of fisheries, not the scraps. You're in at the front end, and you actually plan your entire management system based on the fact that you have different types of fishing use.
These fish still are being mismanaged by the federal government. Louisiana started to cry out. CCA as a national organization became very involved, and from the beginning we've been working behind the scenes, both at the federal level and here, and this is very important, in the Louisiana legislature with our Louisiana politicians to push things inside the state that showed, hey, this could afford a federal fix, and that's where Garret stepped in.
Those who have followed the topic over the past several years know that there have been countless hearings, hundreds of public comments and testimony.
Still, we're feeling the effects today. I am trying to find every reason I can, or trying to find any way I can to take people on a productive fishing trip, because now we're also sitting on top of a last-minute closure of amberjack and triggerfish.
Concerns have been expressed.
We're out here 100 days a year or more, you know. We could set a season. You know what I mean?
There's been a little humor.
Frankly, there's some folks in Washington in charge of this program. They don't know a red snapper from a red-nosed reindeer. And we've got a problem.
And some fireworks.
Things that were said about this agency, about the scientists in this agency, about the ability of this agency to be smart enough to add and subtract, about the political crap. That's what's bad about this whole thing.
And above all, opposition and challenges to overcome.
You know, they say law is kind of like sausage. You don't want to watch the making of it. You want to appreciate the finished product. But let's get into a little bit of the sausage making on this law. Where were the challenges, and who was the opposition, and how was it overcome?
You know, Don, the thing is, and I don't know how to say this any other way than just pretty candidly. You have a group of people that are making millions of dollars a year off of this current structure, and they've made it for years, and under the law and under the practices, they're going to continue making it for years. Their kids are going to make it for years. Their grandkids are going to make it for years because of a giveaway by the federal government to these commercial interests. And so we're up against that. And so we had a lot of misinformation that we were battling. And there were a lot of folks that were trying to prevent a bill from being able to go anywhere. It really was amazing to me as we started working on this bill and talking to other members of Congress and explaining to them some of the challenges we had. I mean, the initial reaction I got from just about everyone is, oh, well, that can't be happening. It can't be as bad as you say. And I mean, almost every single person we talked to, that was the initial response. We have a different type of outdoors in Louisiana. Our state's known as a sportsman's paradise. And what that means to us is that we enjoy going out hunting and fishing and enjoying our outdoors, which are very different, very unique, and fantastic. It's a huge part of our culture, our economy, our way of life at home. They're not from Louisiana, from the Gulf Coast. You know, I'm from Iowa, I'm from Nebraska, New York, Idaho. I don't care about fisheries, and so we had to get this on the radar. We had to get their attention, help them to understand it, and it took a lot of effort and a team of people to really get out there and educate people and help them understand why this was so important.
Recreational offshore anglers account for 11 million fishermen in the United States, providing $63 billion annually towards the economy and over 400,000 jobs. Numbers that Congressman Graves feels will be strengthened thanks to the Modern Fish Act.
What the bill does is it sends some pretty well-defined studies to the Comptroller General, who's the head of the Government Accountability Office, and to the National Academies of Science, and ask them to really take several steps back from how we have managed fisheries at the federal level for the last few decades, and really asking that they take a fresh look on how we determine better management structure moving forward. This is a public resource, just like a national park is, just like a wildlife refuge is. This is a public resource, and it should be managed for the public. It shouldn't be managed for a small set of well-connected folks that got some kind of sweetheart deal from the federal government decades ago. It needs to be managed for the public, and that's really what this is all about.
Coming up next, Louisiana's La Creel program has established a progressive, scientific approach to fisheries data collection. But how will these methods work in conjunction with the Modern Fish Act?
7, 8 years ago now, Louisiana fishermen stepped up, put their money where their mouth was, and asked for an increase in their own saltwater fishing license so that we could implement the La Creel program. And I believe the implementation of La Creel has allowed for things like the Modern Fish Act to come about, because had we not been able to prove that state management is a better way, then things like the Modern Fish Act could have never come to pass.
Hi, I'm Donnie Rouse. There are a lot of different reasons to shop at Rouse's.
It's the people. Everybody that works here is just so nice.
Our stores get deliveries 7 days a week.
They have such a wide variety at Rouse's. Everything's in stock. I mean, everything.
We use Rouse family recipes and ingredients found right here in the store.
It's the food. Rouse's food tastes like homemade.
And they're local.
Like us.
We also have great prices.
That's the difference Rouse's makes.
The iconic whooping crane is back in Louisiana. If you spot a whooping crane, remember, observe and admire it from a distance. And always report any harmful activity. You can always help the Louisiana whooping cranes thrive by donating to lawff.org.
Thank you to Chevron and the Louisiana Wildlife and Fisheries Foundation for their generous support. We continue our talks with Congressman Garret Graves on federal fisheries management reform. Perhaps the spark that started the fire was red snapper. For years, many felt the species was being poorly managed at the federal level, which led to several of the Gulf states to say, we can do it better. People in Louisiana sent you to Washington to do a job, and it certainly was your job to get this done. But you took a much more personal interest in this. Why was that?
Don, Louisiana, like no other state, look, we just finished Washington Mardi Gras, where thousands of people from home come up to Washington and we recreate Louisiana up there. We recreate the culture, the music, the food, just the fun. And the thing is that Louisiana is unique in that the fisheries, the great outdoors is so interwoven into our culture, into our families, and into our economy. And I took a big interest in it because I understand that. I'm one of them. I love to go fishing. I love to go fishing with our kids, with friends. It's something I've been doing ever since I was a little kid. And to see that being taken away from us, and of course, you look at the trajectory going forward, as you and I discussed, what may have been just red snapper in recent years, it absolutely is cascading into other species. So you start playing that forward. Does that mean that in the future, if you want to go fishing, you know, you have to go to Tony's Seafood and get a net and scoop out a catfish? I mean, what does that look like? As opposed to ensuring that future generations can continue to enjoy what you and I have enjoyed, what our parents and grandparents enjoyed for generations to come.
Right now we know that our fisheries off of Louisiana's coast are very healthy. We've got something like 3/4 of the red snapper in the Gulf of Mexico live on the west side of the Mississippi River, where 3/4 of the population lives on the other side. So we've got plenty of fish and not the same effort that happens in the rest of the Gulf. And we, as Garrett said, should be able to take advantage of that public resource as long as the numbers are good.
The main contribution of the Modern Fish Act is the use of better technology and more accurate data collection into the assessment of fisheries quotas. Now that data will not only be applied to the commercial fishery, but also to seasons for recreational anglers.
Coming in on the front end, improving the science, making sure that your science is more accurate, that you're able to take advantage of state-based science. For example, in the state of Louisiana under the LA Creel program, we have much more accurate science as compared to some of the other states and definitely the federal government. And that was evidenced just this year when Louisiana was using LA Creel and other metrics to guide us on how long the snapper season should be open. You had states like Florida that were largely relying upon the federal system. Florida ended up overfishing by probably 20%, whereas Louisiana stayed below our allocation, allowing for better fisheries management practice, more live data and understanding of where we are in the numbers, and ensuring that the species can be sustained for generations to come.
Supporters of the Modern Fish Act know that this law is far from perfect, but with each small battle won, it's a step towards fair practices for fisheries management. Just a few months after the Modern Fish Act was signed into law, it was announced that the Gulf of Mexico Council voted to allow for states to have management over their offshore species. This was a similar battle fought for years.
Do you consider this a battle won or the war over?
This is a battle won. This is absolutely a battle won. There are other provisions that the Senate cut out of the bill that I think need to be returned. There were provisions that we added as an amendment on the House floor to the bill that I think we need to continue discussing and figure out the best path forward.
A great first step, but a first step for sure. We need to consider things like reallocation of the fishery, the tools that we use in order to manage the fishery. I mean, right now the commercial fishery is managed using tools like individual fishing quotas, catch shares, and there was some real danger that those things could seep over into the recreational fishery. Now, I hope with the Modern Fish Act that'll never happen, but we certainly need to continue to look at not just in red snapper fishery, but the other fisheries that we're concerned with, how they're managed moving forward. So the Modern Fish Act, great first step. We should all feel good about it, but we can't rest on our laurels because there's much more work to be done.
I want to clarify that I'm not in any way saying we shouldn't have a commercial fishing industry. That also is a part of our culture. We've got to have a better balance. I mean, you know, right now Louisiana feeds this nation, and you know, top shrimp and blue crabs and oysters and crawfish. But we've got to have a better balance, and we've got to have better science that ensures that we're managing these species in a way that's sustainable for commercial, for recreational, and that folks are being treated fairly, and most importantly, that this is the public's resource. This isn't something that company ABC or company XYZ owns, should have full control over, or should be able to monopolize.
Hi, I'm Miss Louisiana Holly Conway on behalf of the Louisiana Propane Dealers. I'm sure you know that clean, affordable propane gas is used in houses across our state. It's used in cooking, hot water heaters, drying clothes, and heating homes. But did you know that if you ever run out of propane, you need a certified dealer to inspect your system for leaks before it's refilled? That's the law. Propane is a safe and exceptional energy source, and we want to keep it that way.
In 1967, Dutch Stogner realized his dream to run his own meat market. 50 years and 3 generations later, Double D and the Stogner family still operate with Dutch's original commitment to quality. Pick up some Double D sausage today and share your good times with us on Facebook. In 1967, Dutch Stogner realized his dream to run his own meat market. 50 years and 3 generations later, Double D and the Stogner family still operate with Dutch's original commitment to quality. Pick up some Double D sausage today and share your good times with us on Facebook.
Ceviche is actually not something that you cook. You actually cook it with the acids from fruit. Now what we've got here is 2 small fillets from a red snapper. You can use any kind of snapper, beeliner, mangrove snapper, whatever you have. You want to fillet it off the skin, and what we're going to do first is the cooking process, and that's what's done with the fruit. Basically the citrus, the limes, the lemon actually cooks the meat. We like to cook it and slice it very thin. Everything in this, I think, tastes better when it's sliced thin. It kind of gels all the flavors together. So you really just want to put your fingernail against it, slice against the grain, kind of like you would a skirt steak, so you get these little tiny strips. And try not to get any bloodline in there either. The next step shows how much I cut my fingers when I'm fishing, because every time I cut lemons and limes, I tend to find the juice on my hand stinging something. Now, generally it depends on how much fish you want. I usually get about 8 limes. I've got a mix of lemons and limes here. But the goal is you want to get enough fruit so that you can actually coat the meat completely, have it pretty much buried. You'll know it's done if the meat, you can't see through it. You want it to be kind of white. And it generally takes, depending on how much you have, about 2 to 3 hours. That's good. So basically you want to have enough juice, maybe 1 more, kind of knead it down with my fingers, to where it's completely wet and all the meat is covered and submersed in some juice. So now the fish is ready to cook. And this is where the chemical reactions take place. I usually just put it back in the fridge just like this for about 2 hours. When we come back, we'll drain a little bit of the juice out and add the rest of the ingredients.
Here's how I guarantee my crawfish tastes great every time. I use Louisiana Fish Fry brand seafood boil. Why do the pros use Louisiana Fish Fry seafood boil?
Because the flavor is so good.
It has more garlic, onion, paprika, lemon, and not too much salt.
It has much better flavor.
Louisiana Fish Fry brand seafood boil. Find the yellow bag, pour and boil for great crawfish every time.
Hi, I'm Donnie Rouse. There are a lot of different reasons to shop at Rouse's.
It's the people. Everybody that works here is just so nice.
Our stores get deliveries 7 days a week.
They have such a wide variety at Rouse's. Everything's in stock. I mean, everything.
We use Rouse family recipes and ingredients found right here in the store.
It's the food. Rouse's food tastes like homemade.
And they're local.
Like us.
We also have great prices.
That's the difference Rouse's makes.
Welcome back. Well, our ceviche is almost ready. We've got our snapper fish already cooked in the lime juice. You can see how it's changed color. It's kind of white now, opaque a little bit. You can't see through it anymore, so that's how you know it's done. Now we're going to drain a little bit of the lime juice out, not all of it, but enough so that it's not soupy. This is the easy part. We're going to add 1 yellow pepper. You can use any color you want. I tend to think that the colored flavors taste a little bit better. They're sweeter. They didn't have any reds at the store, so I got orange and yellow. 1 red onion. I prefer red onions, got a little more flavor. I'm not going to use all of this because it is a big onion and there's not a huge amount of fish here, so maybe about half of an onion. The key ingredient, probably one of the most important ones, cilantro. Not everybody likes it, but I think it's the key to a good ceviche. Finely chopped up, a little heat. We've got jalapeno, 1 jalapeno and 1 habanero finely chopped. There's 1 ingredient I don't have here that I sometimes do include, and that's fruit. You can use peaches, you can use nectarines or pineapple, anything really sweet. Sometimes people even include watermelon. Over here is our avocado, but since this is a very ripe avocado, I'm going to wait till this is mixed in before I add that. Also, you want to add some cracked black pepper. I'm always pretty generous with this. Now, the best part about this ceviche, it actually tastes better the next day after it sits in the refrigerator for a few hours and kind of blends the flavors of the vegetables. So it actually will really taste better tomorrow. A little bit of sea salt. 1 more touch before I'm going to add the avocado. Just a capful of club soda. What this is going to do is take some of the tartness of the lime juice and lemon juice out. It's all you really need there. Kind of neutralizes the acids a little bit, makes it a little bit less bitter. It's all you need is 1 capful, maybe 2. Just a little dash. Nice ripe avocado. You don't want one of those hard ones. They don't really taste so good. And this will last a couple days, but you really want to use it fresh. And one thing I forgot to mention in the beginning was fresh snapper only. You really don't want to use any fish that's been frozen. It just doesn't have the same texture and the same freshness. So this is all about what's out of the garden and what's fresh. And there you have it. Like I said, you can add or subtract things you don't like and add things you do, but generally that's what it looks like.
My neighbor Tony, he looked at me and said, "Man, you're crazy. You're about to leave out in this weather." And I said, "Sir, I have a tag fish to go catch."
I won this beautiful boat catching a tag redfish in Venice, Louisiana.
There's 100 redfish waiting. It all starts Memorial Day weekend. Sign up today.
Whooping cranes are back in Louisiana. Through the hard work of biologists and key strategic partners, whooping cranes have been restored back to the cultural icon they once held. But you can still help. To donate to the Whooping Crane program, visit lawff.org. Thank you to Chevron and the Louisiana Wildlife and Fisheries Foundation for their generous support.
Thanks for watching another edition of Bayou Wild TV. Remember, you can get your merchandise at BayouWildTV.com. Just scroll down where you see the hats and shirts. Take them out on your outdoor adventures and check out all the episodes as well on YouTube. We're on Instagram. We're on social media everywhere. You can't miss us.
And you can also come have lunch with us and talk a little bit of fishing and hunting here on Mondays at Morton's Restaurant on the Chifuncta River in Madisonville. See you then.